This is the couch where we have sat for our entire lives. Not always on this couch, but this is the proverbial couch where we've sat our whole lives.
That's the space. That's the spot.
Yes, this is the spot where we have been able to sit down with you and hear just wisdom, which we're grateful for. We're grateful that we've had this space to hear from our Father our whole lives. But now we have friends in here with us, and I want to know just how you're feeling in general. Like, tell me how you're feeling, Dad. I always ask you on a scale of 1 to 10, how are you today?
How am I today? Let's see. We've been doing a lot today, so it's going downhill fast. But no, I'm doing okay overall. Overall, it's a lot going on in our world, which means there's a lot going on in the ministry because you got to address people's needs, hurts, desires, frustrations, irritations, and concerns in a way that touches them, but also helps them to make sense of what they're seeing all around us.
I'm doing interviews, you're doing interviews because people are just trying to figure out this whole chaos thing with the racial issue, not just the sickness stuff, but the racial tension that we're having right now. And you lived through that. So what were some of the things that you're seeing now that kind of remind you of what you actually lived through? Because people don't really have a perspective of it really being real.
Well, in April 1968, of course, Martin Luther King was killed, and that led to riots, and that included where I was born and raised, Baltimore, Maryland. And I remember seeing the guard going up and down the street. I was right down the street from our home, the home of your grandparents. Was a lot of where a lot of the rioting took place. I can picture now looking out my window and seeing people being told that the quarantine, basically, as we would say at the day, quarantine. Everybody was ordered in their home so that they could just have to deal with people who are disobeying the law. There's a lot of fear mixed with anger, mixed with destruction, mixed with frustration that here progress was being sought for African Americans that got interrupted by such an evil event. And so there was a confluence of things taking place. But for a lot of us, because I was raised in such a strong Christian environment, we had to try to learn how to mix what we were seeing from a Christian perspective. How would Christ look at what was taking place and why it was taking place? Because I remember growing up with my dad, your granddad, he was showing me restaurants we couldn't go into because I was black, and segregation and some of the ways churches that would not allow blacks in them.
Was he warning you? Like saying, don't go there, don't go there?
He was educating me, which was enough of a warning, but it was in an educational way. This is how it is. It doesn't please the Lord. The Lord's got to take care of it, and at the same time, I remember when I found out, I was over a friend's house when the news interrupted and said Martin Luther King had been assassinated, and how the world stopped. It's like the world stopped because, of course, he was leading a movement, and that movement had engulfed us all because of the hope that was generated by the movement, the hope of a of a new environment, of a new America, of a new inclusion, of desegregation, of opportunity, and it was done in a peaceful way by and large. So when you kill Martin Luther King and he's pushing for peace, well, now there is no peace because the peacemaker had been assassinated. So it was a lot of confusion and trying to make sense of it, trying to keep your Christian witness and not ignore the reality of what you were seeing. And I guess I was helped a lot of that because a lot of that movement was being led by the church. So there was a constant pulling back to a faith narrative, even though it now had to be applied in a very different kind of environment.
So what, you said a lot of the movement was by the church. And so you have Martin Luther King getting killed and everybody, obviously he did try to do it in a peaceful way. And now there's unrest, there's no peace. In the past there's been peaceful protest. And like Martin Luther King said, that rioting is the messaging of the unheard. In other words, there's such a frustration. So the difference now, maybe the church isn't leading or needs to be leading the way that it was leading to show how it really should be done. I mean, what would you say as a pastor and as a father with families, how can we really lead now so that it's actually something that gets done the right way?
Could I ask something before he answers that?
Yeah.
Like, I want to, it'll go into his question, but it kind of precedes it, is how do you feel now seeing stuff that reminds you of 50 years ago? That looks in a lot of ways simple. Like, how does that feel, having been there and here?
It feels like we've come a long way, but we still have a long way to go. It shows that, because with the loss of Martin Luther King, he was reflective of great progress. Laws were changed. Voting rights and opportunities were established. Desegregation was taking place. So now you could go to schools you couldn't go to, live in neighborhoods you couldn't live in. My concern now is that there is a complacency that's set in, and the progress didn't continue, so that now we find ourselves going backwards on both sides of the fence. I don't think enough white Christians understand the failure to deal with some of the structures that still have gone unaddressed, and that's coming out by concern about certain kind of policing, certain kinds of opportunities that are still denied, equality of things like health care among African Americans, making it more susceptible. But at the same time, there is a heavy responsibility on African Americans to reach back. One of the things I hope that you do, because of the benefits that accrued to me that then went to you, was one, establish strong families, because much stronger back then was the family, the African American family. And even though it was in a segregated environment, two-parent families were the norm. The father was at home by and large, and there was an emphasis on the strength of the family even in the midst of segregation. Not only was that the case, but you had a community that reinforced the family values because the church was so influential. So they would pass down these values to their kids. Well, with media now, with the breakdown of the family, you don't have the same transfer. That's why family is so important, and we emphasize family so much. So with your family, your kids, your lives, make sure you're investing in your children a God-centered value system, but also make them aware of their history and their heritage so they can appreciate where they've come from, they can appreciate what they have, and they can not only be beneficiaries of all that God has given, but they can be servants to others so that others get what they may not have because you've gotten what God has allowed you to get.
Yeah, that's powerful. I mean, just thinking about me transferring to my kids, I just realized.
I don't have kids.
Yeah, that's okay. You have a lot of kids.
Yeah,
They're called nieces and nephews.
You're
There's
right.
a whole lot of them. But I just, as I remember when I started driving and you sitting me down and saying, okay, so if you get pulled over, this is what you need to do. At the time, I didn't realize that you were doing that as a black man to a black man. I thought all parents, sit their kids down and say, make them do the whole, okay, Dad, I got it, just going through that process. As I got older, I realized, oh, that's something black families do. I didn't realize, that all families didn't do that. And when I talk to my white brothers and sisters, they're shocked. They're like, what? Are you kidding me? So now I'm having to get ready to have those conversations with my sons and my daughters, but at a space where, they're actually, coming into a time where they see it. Okay, I didn't see it growing up. I didn't know why you were telling me that. But these camera phones have made it to where they're already kind of afraid, as they get ready to go into the world. So how do I parent from that perspective of not putting fear into them because they already got enough that they're seeing, but really just getting them ready for the way the world is and the way they should operate in the world?
Well, my father had a twofold relationship to me. I was his son, but I was also a black man growing up in segregated Baltimore. and I know what it is to be pulled over simply because I was told by the policeman, you're in the wrong neighborhood. Why are you here? And for no other reason than that. And that happened more than once. And I know that that's the kind of world we are living in. Now, that's not reflective of all policemen, but it could happen. And I wanted you to be prepared as my son, because I don't want anything to happen to my son, but also the high possibility that it could happen to you because you're a black son. And the reality is that sometimes an officer can be angry, sometimes they can be afraid. You have to be wise, because it's always better to live another day to be able to tell your story than to be in a situation that goes off and you get hurt. So I wanted to make sure you went overboard, because when a policeman pulls you over, he has a number of things going for him. One, he has the suit. He's in blue, so he is a legitimate legal authority. He has a badge, okay, with that suit that reinforces that. He has the law on his side. He has the right to pull you over. And then he has a gun. All you have is you're driving behind a wheel. So given all of that legitimate reality, I wanted my sons to go overboard to show respect for the person, respect for the position, and if something was done that was inappropriate, to just note that and bring it back to me so that we could address it properly and it not escalate into something that would be damaging, particularly damaging to you. So I wanted, there's a biblical principle, is to respect those in authority. So that is an authority position. We are to respect it. That doesn't mean that they will always do the best in respecting you, but we can always come back to fight it legally and legitimately another day if it doesn't escalate. So you be in the de-escalating position when you're caught in that scenario, particularly when you are right. Now, if you did wrong and were speeding and were going down the wrong way, then you were wrong. You deserve a ticket, and you don't justify wrong in the name of color. But what you do not do is accept wrong, but you have to have a legitimate way to make it right.
What are steps that you are taking in this moment? And I'm just curious, as related to dealing with this whole issue that we're facing and dealing with anti-racism and being proactive toward that direction, and also at the same time preserving relationships, because our family, a lot of our ministry is just cross-cultural. That's what we do, and all that. And then are you bringing in anybody to help you in on this whole moment? What's going on all that?
Well, I look at everything as, spiritually and theologically.